right, so we're going to work on the midterm. To do that, I'm going to go into my quad view here, and over in the front view, I'm going to go to View, Image Plane, Import Image, and I'm going to bring in, I believe it's Croc 1. Yeah, Croc 1 is going to go into the front view. We'll open that up. There it is. And I will move that over so it's out of the way. I'm also going to scale this so it's bigger because this is really small, right? Each one of these grid squares is a centimeter. So that's pretty small, and we'll probably end up scaling the model in the end just to make it bigger that way. And down here on the side view, I'm going to go to View, Image Plane, Import Image, and we're going to bring in, not Croc 3. Croc 3 is good for this wheel, so we can kind of see what the wheel's doing. We'll bring in Crocodile JPEG, so we can get a different view of what's happening here with Crocodile. So import that, open that up. And we're just going to use this one here as reference. We're not going to just to look at, go, okay, that looks fairly reasonable from this other angle. Okay, just to match my reference from this angle here. And this is the one we're going to try to match it to, this image here. The other image, the third image, the other crocodile image, I'm just going to leave that open in my other window. If you get PureRef, you can have that open at the same time if you only have one monitor. If you happen to have two monitors, then you can have that open in a separate monitor like I do. Okay, so let's start with the head. Why not? I'm going to create a cube to make that. That sounds reasonable. Move this over. Let me go ahead and click here. We're going to change the height. The height about right. That's good. And then get the width. Middle click and drag the width out. And then we will add divisions. So let's go to subdivisions on width. And that will be enough to get started. We can do a subdivision on height too. Just one. Okay, then go to vertex. I'm going to take these vertices here. We'll scale them, move them up. We'll move these up. Notice I'm clicking all the way through. I'm clicking and dragging over so I get all the vertices all the way through when I do that. So I don't need to bring this up here. I don't need to worry about having it uneven if I do that way. All right, then pull this out, pull this up, and then pull this over. I'm going to push this one in, and I'm going to bring it down a little bit. All right, and then I'm going to push this one in. We don't need to have this one raised up here. We can kind of keep it straight through there. Pull this up so it matches. If you press 3, you'll kind of get the idea that, hey, this kind of matches. Okay. I'm going to add in some edge loops. So this is my insert edge loop tool. That's underneath edit mesh, or not edit mesh. I'm sorry. It's underneath mesh tools. So we'll put that in. If you don't have it on your shelf, put it on your shelf. It's a good, easy tool just to kind of grab and then click and drag things in. And then we can put in one. I'm going to grab these right here. I'm just going to move them over and then take this and drag it down. And then I'm going to move this over. And then there you go. You kind of have that there. Now we need to bevel this so that it doesn't quite match. When we bevel it, it's going to change things. So go to edge here, double click this edge. Holding shift, I'm going to double click, shift double click, shift double click. This edge is all the way around the outside. And it looks like I got something else added on here. What's that? Shift double click here, shift double click, and then shift double click. And now this is all these edges on the outside only are selected, and we're going to bevel them. That's underneath edit mesh. If you don't have it on your shelf, it's right here. It's this icon. It's on your standard shelf if you're using the standard shelf. So we bevel that. Now normally you get a little pop-up window where you can adjust the bevel, but we didn't get that. So I'm going to go over here to my inputs, and I'm going to click on poly bevel 1. I'm going to change my fraction to a 0.1, and I'm going to turn my chamfer off, and that will sharpen that up. Go to object mode, press 3, and you can see that's pretty sharp now. It's very sharp. And if we look at this in the side view, see it matches a lot more closely to what we have in our photograph. I'm going to select the end here. I'm going to pull this out. I'm going to select this up here and pull this up. Select this over here and pull this up so it kind of matches better. Just get it to match a little bit better. I'm very meticulous about this stuff. You don't have to be this meticulous when you're dealing with these models. Very few people are going to come in and check this closely. I'm going to add in an edge loop in here because I'm not getting this shape in here that I want to get with the rest of this. So there we go. We have the head of the gator or crocodile. That's the head. You would paint on a texture. We're not going to worry about that right now. We'll do that later. Okay, so now we have these cylindrical objects in here that allow for the alligator crocodile to bend. I want to call it an alligator, probably because its teeth are sticking out, and alligators' teeth stick out more than a crocodile's. But I guess it's really not important. But let's get these cylinders in here. Let's create a cylinder. There's a cylinder. I'm going to come over here to polycylinder 1, click on the word radius, and then middle click and drag. And it looks like 2 is going to be about right. So 2, I don't need to have 20 divisions. We'll go with 12. That's more than enough. 10 is probably enough. If you go to 8, you might get a distortion. 8 is the minimum you can have, though. And then we're going to change the height a little bit. So 2.5 maybe. I think that'll be right there. Now I want to do subdivisions on caps. We're going to do 2. And then we'll do subdivisions on height. We'll do 3. And we can then pretty easily bevel this way here. You could just take these things and do the same thing we did before with the bevel on the head, and then we can push this out. Go to object mode, press 3, and you'll see that'll hold that shape as a cylinder, as a cylindrical object. It looks pretty good there. I'm going to duplicate this, holding down Shift, click and drag over. And then click and drag over. I really shift between each one. And then just go on to the next. And now we have all of those in place. Pretty easy. All right. And then we have this weird shape here. And this can be made with a cube. So click on cube. I don't know what that's all about. Apologize. And we will change in this case, we're going to change the width of the cube. Make it narrower. Looks like this one over here is the one that is most closely matched to the side. Okay, that looks pretty good. So 0.48. That looks about perfect. And then I'm going to change the height of the cube. So clicking on the word height, then middle click and drag over here. And I'm going to bring that up. Looks like a 3.2. It's going to be perfect or close to perfect. Alright, and then it's too narrow, right? It's going to be wider than that. No, so let's make it wider. We can tell that if we look at like this version here. Looks like they're all the same width, but they're different heights. So let's go to the depth. I'm going to click on the word depth, middle click and drag. That's probably okay. And now comes the hard part, which is going to be adding in a division on the depth. So click here, you can add one in there. And let me check over here. Taper. Looks like it goes almost all the way down. We'll add in another division on the height, just type in a 2. But I'm going to take this one here, we'll move it down a little bit. And then I'm going to take the vertices here and here, I'm going to scale them in. Push them down. Object mode, press 3, and we'll see that rounds over pretty well. That might be okay. We'll see when we get our bevel on here. So select all these outer edges like we did with the head. Holding Shift, you can get them all selected. This one down here too on the bottom, on that corner. I think that's going to be, is that sharp? Yeah, it looks pretty sharp. Not as sharp as the rest of them, but we can adjust it independently. With all those selected, we can bevel them. Click on bevel, and then go to your bevel. Change your fraction, in this case to, 0.1 I think will work. And then your chamfer, turn that off, 0. Object mode, press 3, and that's the shape that we end up with. It's pretty good, but it's not perfect. Now down here, I said we could adjust these. I'm going to take this edge all the way across here, holding down Shift, click, and then still holding Shift, double click. And we'll have all of them selected there, and then we can drag this in, and you're going to start seeing this round out more. So I'm going to click here, Shift, double click, Shift click, Shift double click, and then I'm going to move these up. You see that rounds that out a little bit. So it's a little bit more rounded there. And what I'll do is go to my Insert Edge Loop tool, and I'm going to insert an edge loop right over here. And then that edge is selected. It doesn't look like it's selected, but it is selected. I'm going to scale that out a little bit, just a little bit, so that it rounds this over more. I think we're looking pretty good. This here might need to be lowered a little bit. And then this would be out there. Cool. So now we have that shape. I'm just checking the height here. That's good. I'm gonna go to vertex. I'm gonna grab all these and just pull them up slightly. Check my shape again over here, just make sure it's nicely rounded. Okay, I think that'll work. Object mode, and then we're gonna hold down Shift, and we'll click and drag this over to this one here. Move it up slightly, and then I'm gonna scale it on height. There you go. Do the same thing over here. Do the same thing over here. It's got to be very careful with your scaling. Trying to match the bottom more than anything. And they're slightly off. That's okay. If they're slightly off, nobody's going to notice. But you want to get them close enough that they'll be. As you can see, they're slightly off down here, but not that big of a deal. If you really want to get them, what you can do is this. Tap D, D as in David. Pardon me while I adjust my glasses. Hold down the V key, V as in Victor, and we're going to snap that down to the bottom here. Tap W to go back. And I'm going to press the plus key so you can see that line up right there. See, it's not lined up. Press the plus key again, and you can line that up there. And then, like, well, it's too tall. If it's too tall, you can scale it, and it will only scale down from the top at that point. It will not scale from the bottom. It'll only scale from the top. We can tap the plus key again. So this one here is a little bit lower than the other. So, you know, depending on how we want to line that up. So again, tap the D key, D as in David, press the minus key to make that smaller. Hold down V, V as in Victor, and then we'll snap this down to the bottom. Tap W, and you can then see if that lines up. It doesn't line up. So we'll move it up slightly. There you go, now it lines up. It's maybe a little bit too tall up there. Press R, and we can scale that slightly down. It's probably okay. And then this one here can be moved down ever so slightly. And you can see that lines up now pretty well. This here might not be quite lined up with that, and then this here might not be quite lined up with that. So just make sure these are touching. All these are touching. I just kind of line things up off. They're not exactly on where they need to be. I don't need this one. There we go. And then remember, control is your deselect. So there's our little gator to start out with. These look a little bit too narrow to me. I'm thinking they're too narrow. So let's grab them all. We'll scale them out. So that way the gator can be a little bit more exuberant. Its movement. Actually, it wouldn't be anymore. It'd be less exuberant. There. Okay, so we will move on to the tail. And that will be another cube. Pretty easy, straightforward. Just make a cube. And then I'll go over to the inputs and change the width. Something that's going to be usable out of this here. So let's go with 3. Let's go with 3. Call it good. And then the height. Click on the height, then middle click and drag over here. And that'll be good for the height. And then we'll need divisions on the depth. No, on the width. And we'll need 1 on the height probably. I'm going to do, you don't want to go crazy with your adding in divisions. You want to keep it low. You don't want to add in very many divisions, even if you know you're going to need them. Like if I need 100 divisions, you don't want to add them all in, because working with 100 divisions, unless you only have like one little thing to do, like you have to select every other one and move them down, every other row of vertices and move them down or something like that. The more divisions that you have, the harder it is to work with the model, because the number of divisions, you know, look how I have to go through and I have to select each one of these. I have to move this one over, and then I'm going to select it and move it down. Imagine having to do that with twice as many. If I just put in 12 instead of 6, it's going to be a lot more work. So I don't want to add in more divisions than are reasonable to start off with. And then get these moved up. And then press 3 to kind of, okay, that's cool. So with this here, take these faces here and here. I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to click and drag that out to get that rest of that tail. And then I'm going to go to vertex. That way I just extruded that tail. That was me extruding, holding shift to do that. Then with this, I can go to edge, double click, shift, double click, holding down shift, double click all the way through. Notice I didn't change the depth of the cube. We have, we're gonna have to do sharpness over here and over here. Make that sharp there. Okay, we'll bevel this, so bevel. And then go to your bevel, change your fraction. We'll do 0.1. I can't really tell for sure here, but 0.1 seems like it's okay. And then turn off my chamfer. And it looks like we got ourselves that tail shape, roughly. We want to go to this view here, sorry. Go to now, let's see. All right, I'm going to use something called the offset edge loop tool. That's underneath my mesh tools. I have it on my shelf, but I'll show you in the mesh tools here. It's right here, offset edge loop tool. I'm going to click and drag here, and it adds in 2 edges on either side of the edge that I'm dragging on. I know you can't really see that edge. It's there, that was the brown. It's hard to see. I can barely see it, so it's probably hard for you too. But that's what that does. And then I'm going to go to vertex here, and I'm just going to kind of drag this down. If I can grab it, kind of. Let's slide this, holding shift and control. Slide that over, so you kind of give it a little bit more breathing room here. Shift and control, and then we can adjust the bottom here. You want to make sure that you don't get edges too close together, because it will cause like distortion, which we might see here. I'm going to add in an edge loop, so insert edge loop tool. I'm going to add one in here, and then over here we'll offset edge loop. So again, offset edge loop here. Why does this not let me offset edge loop? There you go. For some reason, some of these tools don't work with the 3 key turned on, the smooth mesh preview turned on. Don't know why that is, but they don't. Let me get this whole thing here, and I'll slide it a little bit. So what I want to do here, I think that's going to be okay. I think it's going to be all right. I think that's pretty good. This is a little bit more rounded than what I have. And this here, we can kind of bring this in. I'll slide this down and then move it down too. And I think we're good with the tail. I think that's what we needed to do. Let's move that in. This one, this edge right here, I'm going to slide that. It's a little bit more round here. So we'll grab this one here. And slide that too. Dang it. Slide that one too. So they're a little bit more rounded there. I think it's a little bit more rounded in the actual toy. Cool. All right, let's go and finish the rest of this off in a different video.